Tonight, let the room around you grow quiet, and let the present day fall away like snow from the edge of a roof. Let the bright little urgencies of modern life loosen their fingers. There is no need to hurry now. There is no door to answer, no message to return, no name to remember, no task to finish before you rest. We are going north tonight, far beyond the warm streets and glowing windows of the present, into a winter world of timber walls, wool cloaks, iron tools, low firelight, and breath turning pale in the cold. We are going to the Viking Age, but not to the crashing version of it, not to the version of shouting raids and sharp blades held high against stormy skies. Tonight, we are entering the quieter Viking world, the world inside the longhouse, where smoke curls slowly under the rafters, where people mend nets, carve bone, stir broth, tell stories, and carry their identities in ways that are strange to us now. This is a story about Viking tooth marks, about the carved lines, grooves, colors, and possible decorations that some people may have worn in their smiles. It is a subject that can sound harsh at first because teeth feel intimate. The mouth is private. A mark made there seems both hidden and impossible to hide. But we will approach it gently. We will not stay inside the pain. We will not make the body a spectacle. Instead, we will look slowly at what such marks might have meant. Courage, memory, rank, beauty, belonging, fearlessness, protection, or simply the deep human wish to say, I am part of something, and I have endured. Imagine the coast first. It is late in the cold season. The fjord lies dark and still beneath a pale sky. Snow has softened the ground around the settlement. A few boats rest by the water, their sails folded, their ropes stiff with frost. Smoke rises from the roofs of longhouses in slow gray threads, drifting sideways when the wind touches them. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then thinks better of it. Somewhere else, a goat shifts inside a pen and knocks gently against a wooden rail. The village is not silent. No living place is ever truly silent. But the sounds are low and close. An axe biting wood, a bucket set down, a child laughing and being hushed, the scrape of a blade on antler, the crackle of the hearth, the distant wash of cold water against the shore. You step toward the longhouse, boots pressing into snow that has hardened overnight. The doorway is low. You duck your head and enter. At once the air changes. It is warmer inside, though never completely free of cold. The fire glows along the central hearth, orange and red, breathing light onto the faces gathered around it. Smoke hangs above, caught in the rafters, with the smell of pine, wool, dried fish, damp leather, and old stories. This is where the night begins. Before the elder speaks again, let your eyes adjust fully to the room. A Viking longhouse is not only a shelter, it is a world held together by wood, smoke, labor, and memory. The walls lean slightly inward in the imagination, darkened by years of fire. The roof beams are black with soot. The packed earth floor carries the marks of boots, paws, spilled broth, dropped tools, and winter mud that has dried it and returned to dust. Along the benches are blankets and cloaks, some coarse, some finely woven, all smelling faintly of wool, smoke, and human warmth. A shield hangs where the light touches only its curved edge. Near it, a comb made from bone rests beside a small knife. A child has carved lines into a scrap of wood and abandoned it near the hearth. Nothing in the room is merely decorative. Everything has use, memory, or both. The people around the fire are not frozen in myth. They are tired, hungry, amused, watchful, ordinary. One man rubs a sore shoulder. Another repairs a strap with patient fingers. A woman lifts a pot with a cloth wrapped around her hand. Someone yawns. Someone scratches a dog behind the ears. The dog sighs and closes its eyes as though it understands more than anyone has said. In this room, a marked tooth is not a museum specimen. It belongs to breath, food, laughter, complaint, and cold mornings. It belongs to someone who must awake, work, carry water, mend a net, and remember where the good knife was last placed. That is why the story should move slowly. Strange customs become more human when they are returned to their rooms. The elder's smile is still there near the fire. The grooves in his teeth appear and disappear as he speaks to the person beside him. No one stares the way a modern visitor might. The marks are familiar here, even if not everyone wears them. Familiar things can still be powerful. A hearth is familiar. A blade is familiar. A name is familiar. Each can carry weight. A bowl passes from hand to hand. The steam rises and disappears into the smoky upper dark. Outside the door, snow shifts under the wind. Inside, the marks wait for their meanings to unfold. People sit on benches along the walls. Some are eating. Some are mending. Some are carving. Someone turns a wooden bowl in their hands, smoothing the rim with a thumb. A woman twists wool into thread. A child watches sparks rise from the fire as if they are messages going up into the dark roof. Near the hearth, an elder leans forward and smiles, and in the glow you see something unexpected across his front teeth. Thin lines, not quite natural, cut sideways through the enamel, catching shadow and flame. The marks are small, but once seen, they change the whole room. You notice another man with faint grooves, then another with darker lines, perhaps filled with soot or ash. A young man laughs, and his smile flashes in the firelight, not bright and even, but marked, altered, made deliberate. The mouth, usually so ordinary, has become a place of meaning. Nothing in this story asks you to decide too quickly. History rarely gives a single answer when the evidence comes from bones, tools, graves, and traces. Archaeologists have found Viking Age teeth with deliberate filing, especially on front teeth. Sometimes horizontal grooves, sometimes marks that seem planned rather than accidental. Most known examples are associated with adult men, but the meaning remains debated. Were these marks signs of warrior identity, social rank, trade connection, initiation, intimidation, beauty, ritual, or personal memory? The teeth have survived. The explanations did not survive as clearly. So tonight, we will sit with possibilities. The fire is steady. The longhouse is warm enough. Snow presses softly against the world outside. You do not need to know everything at once. The first marked smile belongs to the elder near the hearth. He has lines across his front teeth, not deep enough to ruin the tooth, but clear enough to catch the light when he speaks. Age has worn them. The enamel is yellowed, chipped at one edge, and still the pattern remains. He has carried those marks for many winters. He does not explain them immediately. In a Viking longhouse, some knowledge arrives only after silence has made space for it. He picks up a small piece of antler and turns it between his fingers. It is smooth from handling, its edge worn thin. Beside him lies a shard of bronze, a needle of bone, a scrap of leather, and a little pouch tied with cord. These are not displayed like museum objects. They are part of life. Tools for making, repairing, marking, remembering. The elder sees you looking. He smiles again, and the lines in his teeth darken in the firelight. A person's face in this world is not simply a face. It is a record of weather, work, hunger, kinship, travel, age, and choice. A scar may tell of a fight or a fall. A hand may tell of rope, oar, loom, or forge. A cloak pin may tell of wealth. A sword may tell of rank, though sometimes only of inheritance. Teeth are different. They are carried everywhere. They are shown when one speaks, laughs, threatens, trades, eats, or sings. A tooth mark is both private and public, hidden until the mouth opens, then suddenly unavoidable. The elder points to a younger man across the hearth. His grooves are fresher, sharper, less softened by time. The young man notices the attention and sits straighter. He does not grin widely, perhaps because the marks are still tender. Perhaps because dignity requires restraint. His front teeth bear two fine lines, deliberate and parallel. Not enough to be ornamental from a distance, but close enough to see when he speaks. The marks make the face feel older than the person. Not older in years, but older in story. This is the first reveal of the night. Tooth filing may not have been decoration in the simple sense. It may have been a visible claim, a statement made on bone. The kind of statement that says, I have entered something. I have endured something. I have been shaped, and I consented to the shaping. Yet consent in the past is complicated. A young man may ask for a mark because he wants honor. He may be expected to ask because all those he admires have marks. He may fear the pain, and fear the shame of refusing even more. Rituals are often woven from desire and pressure together. The body remembers both. We do not need to pull the scene sharply. Let it remain in firelight. The young man drinks slowly from a horn. A little steam rises from a bowl of broth. The elder sets the antler piece beside the pouch again. The marks on the teeth remain, quiet but impossible to forget. Outside, the cold has deepened. Inside, the story moves more slowly. The young man with the fresh grooves does not speak much, but his silence is not empty. It is full of awareness. He feels the marks whenever his tongue touches the front of his teeth. He feels their newness when he drinks something hot. He feels the way people glance at him differently, not openly, not rudely, but with the brief, measuring look a community gives to someone who has crossed a threshold. Thresholds matter in harsh climates. A person cannot remain a child forever where winter is long. Ships must be hauled. Animals must be fed. Roofs must be repaired. And kinship must hold against hunger, weather, and feud. Societies make thresholds because the body changes before the group always knows what to call the change. A mark can help name it. Perhaps the young man's lines were made after a first voyage. Perhaps after a first fight. Perhaps after surviving an illness. Or pledging himself to a household, a leader, a crew, or a god. Perhaps the mark was not heroic at all, but fashionable. Copied because someone admired someone else. Human beings have always done serious things for reasons that are partly serious and partly social. The elder understands this. He does not ask the young man to explain. Explanation can reduce a mark too quickly. Instead, he lets the room treat the young man as changed, but not entirely new. He is still asked to fetch wood. He is still teased by an older cousin. He still spills broth on his sleeve. Identity may be altered by ritual, but life immediately tests whether the alteration can survive ordinary inconvenience. This is one of the soft truths of history. Even the most meaningful bodily sign must live through breakfast. It must live through weather, chores, embarrassment, sleep, and age. If the mark is real, life will wear it down slowly and make it part of the person, rather than an event remembered only by those who watched it happen. The young man looks into the fire. The lines on his teeth are hidden now because his mouth is closed. The sign waits inside the face, private again. The night continues. The longhouse is a place of warmth, but also of smoke and closeness. Along the beams hang dried herbs, rings of bread, strips of fish, tools, ropes, and things saved, because winter makes saving a virtue. Shields lean against a wall. A loom stands near one side. Furs lie over benches. Fur. Hearth is the center of everything. Not only heat, but memory. People drift in and out of conversation. Someone speaks of a boat needing repair. Someone complains about a goat. Someone laughs about a child who tried to carry a bucket too large. Then the talk returns, as it often does tonight, to the mouth, to marks, to the way a person can alter the body and become more themselves, or more useful to the group, or more frightening to those outside it. A cloth bundle is open near the fire. Inside are tools, a piece of bone worn smooth, a sliver of metal, a narrow file, a small stone, a carved stick darkened at one end. The scene could become uncomfortable if told too sharply, so we will keep our distance. We do not need to feel every scrape. We only need to understand that the work required skill, steadiness, courage, and trust. A mark across a tooth was not casual. It asked the body to sit still. It asked someone else's hand not to slip. It asked the person receiving it to endure a kind of controlled transformation. The elder touches one tool, not with fear, but with respect. In this world, tools often have more than one life. A knife cuts food and shapes wood. A needle repairs clothing and binds leather. A file may smooth a bone comb, fit a rivet, or in the hands of someone careful, mark a tooth. The boundary between craft and ritual can be thin when everything is made by hand. You notice how quietly the people look at the tools. There is no wildness in the room now, only attention. The fire crackles. A child leans against an older sister. A woman at the loom pauses with thread between her fingers. The young man with fresh marks lowers his eyes as if remembering. To us, the thought of altering teeth may seem strange, even alarming, but many cultures have shaped teeth in different ways across history. Some filed, some stained, some inlaid, some blackened, some sharpened, some polished. The meanings varied. Beauty, maturity, grief, rank, belonging, spirituality, intimidation, and more. The human body has always been a canvas for the invisible things people needed to make visible. In this Viking room, the canvas is small. A few front teeth, a few lines, a mark that might be hidden by a closed mouth and revealed in a grin. There's softness even here. The elder wraps the tools again, not to frighten, but to protect them. The cloth is folded carefully. The pouch is tied. The child loses interest and returns to tracing lines in ash with a stick. The woman at the loom resumes her work. A small pattern grows under her hands, thread crossing thread just as the tooth marks cross enamel. Patterns are everywhere once you begin to notice them. In woven cloth, in carved wood, in ship prows, in brooches, in scars, in teeth. A people who carve dragons onto ships and knots into silver might also carve meaning into the body, not because the body was disposable, but because it was precious enough to bear signs. Now the story returns to safety. The tools are wrapped. The fire is steady. The snow outside is quiet. No one is being marked now. We are only listening to what marks may have meant. The tools, once wrapped, lose some of their sharpness in the mind. They become objects again. Bone, metal, stone, cloth. But the room remembers the attention they gathered. A tool can change character depending on what story surrounds it. A file beside a carpenter is craft. A file beside a mouth is courage, trust, and risk. The object is the same. the meaning shifts. There is a quiet lesson here about material culture. Archaeologists often find tools, but tools rarely confess all their uses. A blade may have cut leather, food, rope, hair, flesh, or wood. A stone may have sharpened iron, smoothed bone, or shaped something more intimate. Wear marks, context, and comparison can help, but certainty is often shy. In the longhouse, no one thinks of these things as future evidence. They think of them as necessary. A good tool is cared for because winter is not forgiving. The cloth around the tools is patched at one corner. The cord has been retied many times. The pouch itself is a small history of use. A woman reaches for a needle nearby and threads it by firelight. The gesture is small and steady, across from her. The elder has just wrapped tools that might mark teeth. She now mends a torn sleeve. Both actions alter a surface so that life can continue. One marks a body. One repairs cloth. Both require patience. Both leave traces. It would be wrong to make the practice seem simple. It was not simply beautiful, not simply frightening, not simply violent, not simply proud. Most meaningful things in the past were layered. A tooth groove may have been a fashion and an ordeal, a sign of belonging and a personal memory, a way to intimidate outsiders and reassure insiders. The fire does not decide between these meanings. It holds them all in one orange light. As the evening grows deeper, food is passed around. Thin stew in wooden bowls, root vegetables softened by long cooking, perhaps a little dried fish, perhaps a piece of coarse bread dipped in broth. The meal is simple, warm, and deeply welcome. Eating changes the mood. The marked mouths that seemed mysterious a moment ago are now ordinary again, chewing slowly, speaking between bites, laughing at small jokes. This matters. A decorated tooth is not only for rituals or battle. It lives inside daily life. It bites bread. It aches in cold air. It shows when someone teases a child or sings a verse. It belongs to a person who must still mend straps, feed animals, bargain at markets, and sleep when the wind allows. The chieftain, or perhaps simply a wealthy man with the presence of one, sits not far from the fire. His cloak is better woven than most. A bronze brooch holds it at the shoulder, shaped like an animal with a long, curling body. His teeth bear several fine grooves, not random, not careless. When he turns his head, lines darken, then vanish, then darken again. Status in the Viking world could be shown in many ways. A fine cloak, a sword, a silver arm ring, amber beads, a large house, a ship, a chest of trade goods, guests to feed, followers to protect. But teeth are different from jewelry. Jewelry can be taken off. It can be stolen, gifted, buried, traded. Tooth marks remain with the body. They say that status, if status is what they meant, has entered the person rather than merely resting upon them. Some scholars have suggested that filed teeth may have marked a group, perhaps warriors, traders, or men connected by shared identity. Others are more cautious, because the evidence is scattered and meanings can easily be overimagined. A burial with filed teeth does not always come with weapons. A person with marked teeth is not always obviously rich. Archaeology gives us bones and objects, but not always motives. Still, the human mind searches for patterns. That is what humans do. We see a line and ask who drew it. We see a mark and ask whether it was meant to be seen. We see a body altered and ask what the person hoped to become. The chieftain tells a story. His voice is low, rhythmic, half speech and half song. He speaks of traveling east along rivers, of markets where furs, wax, metal, cloth, and stories changed hands. He speaks of foreign men whose clothes were light, whose coins were bright, whose languages moved quickly. He touches his teeth and says something that makes those nearby laugh softly. Perhaps he claims the pattern came from a far place. Perhaps he exaggerates. Viking stories often allow truth to wear a cloak of drama. But the possibility is interesting. Vikings traveled widely. They traded, raided, settled, served as mercenaries, and absorbed objects, ideas, words, fashions, and techniques from far beyond Scandinavia. They encountered Byzantium, the Islamic world, the British Isles, Frankish lands, the Baltic, Slavic regions, and more. A practice like tooth marking could have been local, borrowed, adapted, or independently developed. History does not always choose one path when several can twist together. The longhouse listens. Some believe the chieftain's story. Some do not. A boy near the wall seems less interested in accuracy than in the idea that a smile could carry a journey. That is a beautiful thought, and we can let it remain. A smile is travel. A groove as memory. A mark is proof that the body has crossed distance and returned. The fire shifts, sparks climb upward and vanish in the smoke. Outside, the boats rock faintly against their ropes. The sea beyond is dark, but not empty. It holds roots, dangers, markets, islands, and all the unknown places from which customs might arrive. For now, no one travels. Winter holds the village close. The stories do the traveling instead. The chieftain's story opens a wider map inside the smoky room. You can almost see the routes while he speaks. The dark sea lanes between islands. The river mouths where boats were pulled and pushed through mud. The market towns where strangers counted silver by weight. The harbors where languages collided like waves against stone. A Viking traveler might return with beads from one region, cloth from another, coins from far away, a new word in his mouth, a new clasp on his cloak, a new story about foreign customs, and perhaps a new idea about the body. The Viking Age was not sealed inside the North. It was stitched into a broad world by ships, trade, violence, service, marriage, migration, curiosity, and need. Imagine a market on a warmer river. The air smells of animals, sweat, smoke, spices, river mud, and metal. Silver changes hands. Furs are opened. Swords are inspected. Amber catches the sun. A northern trader laughs with a man whose language he barely understands, because bargaining has its own grammar. Nearby, someone smiles, and the teeth are darkened or shaped in a way the northern trader has never seen before. He remembers it, perhaps not accurately. Memory is not a ledger. It keeps what startles it. When he returns north, he describes the smile. Someone else compares it to a local practice. Another person says their grandfather had marks like that long before any eastern journey. A third person says foreign customs are impressive only when brought home and made northern. This is how customs travel. Not as perfect copies, but as sparks. They land in existing tinder. A practice may arrive from elsewhere, or it may already exist and gain new meaning when compared with distant examples. The question of origin can matter, but so can the question of adaptation. What did people do with an idea once they had it? How did they make it belong? The chieftain's marked teeth catch the fire again. Whether his lines came from travel, local tradition, personal memory, or all three, they now belong to his face. They have crossed into identity. The story rests there for a moment. A root outside, a mark inside, a world larger than the longhouse, carried in a smile. Later, when the stew bowls are empty and the fire has settled lower, an old traveler enters the longhouse. He is wrapped in layers of wool and patched leather, his beard stiff with frost, his hands reddened by cold. The room makes space for him because travelers bring the outside world into winter. They bring news, goods, exaggerations, warnings, and the kind of stories that make people lean closer to the fire. His teeth, when he speaks, are not merely grooved. They are darkened with color. The lines look blue-black in the flame, as though night itself has settled into the cuts. No one reacts with shock, curiosity, yes, respect perhaps. A child stares openly until nudged. The old traveler grins, enjoying the attention. He knows the power of arrival. He knows a marked mouth can make a story begin before a word is spoken. He tells of journeys eastward, of rivers broad as fields, of cities where the roofs gleamed, of markets where languages braided together like rope. He says he saw men with colored teeth blackened or painted or shaped. Perhaps he did. Perhaps he saw something else and memory embroidered it. Oral worlds are not always interested in our modern separation between exact report and meaningful tale. Still, the idea matters. Tooth decoration has appeared in many human cultures, sometimes as beauty, sometimes as adulthood, sometimes as spiritual sign, sometimes as group identity. Whether Viking tooth marks were influenced by foreign practices or emerged within Scandinavian communities, they belong to this wider human pattern, the body made into a message. The traveler opens a pouch and removes a small object. It might be a fine comb or a narrow tool, or simply a carved piece of bone worn smooth by use. He handles it carefully. He says it came from far away. Someone asks whether it is for applying color. He shrugs, and the shrug is half answer, half performance. He mixes a dark paste near the fire. Ash, perhaps, charcoal, crushed herbs, something that smells earthy and bitter. He touches it to the grooves in his teeth, and the marks become visible again, stronger in the firelight. A few people laugh softly, not mocking, but delighted. The face is changed with a single gesture. This is a gentler kind of marking, temporary, theatrical, almost playful. If permanent grooves carried memory, Pigment could awaken them for a feast, a meeting, a trade, a moment of display. The mouth becomes a lantern, and the lines become shadows. A young woman watches carefully. She has no filed teeth, but she understands adornment. Her cloak edge is embroidered. Her hair is bound with a small bead. Her knife handle is carved. Her body, like everyone's, carries choices. Not all choices cut. Some are tied, woven, painted, pinned, washed away, renewed. The traveler catches her looking and smiles for a moment. The room is full of faces lit by fire, all of them marked in different ways. Wrinkles, scars, braids, soot, jewelry, missing teeth, bright eyes, tired eyes, laughter lines, grief kept quiet. Tooth grooves are only one part of a larger truth. No one passes through life unmarked. Some marks are chosen. Some arrive without asking. Some are visible. Some live beneath the tongue. Now let the room soften. The traveler wraps his pouch. The dark paste is set aside. The child's stare becomes sleepiness. The fire lowers. The marked teeth vanish when mouths close. And the people become ordinary shapes in the dim longhouse again. Yet the idea of color remains. Pigment is different from cutting. It can be renewed. It can be washed away. It can make a faint mark bold for one night, then let it retreat again. This temporary quality gives it a special softness in our story. The same grooves that might be nearly invisible during work could darken for a feast, a meeting, a journey, or a farewell. Think of all the ways people have used color to change the body for a time. Soot under the eyes, red on the cheeks, herbs staining fingers, woad, charcoal, ochre. Berry juice, ash, clay, crushed minerals, smoke. Color can be practical, protective, playful, sacred, or theatrical. It can turn the familiar face into a ceremonial one without making the change permanent. The traveler's dark paste sits near the hearth in a shallow cup. It is not beautiful in itself. It looks like earth after rain. But when it enters the grooves, the lines awaken. That is the power of contrast. A shallow cut becomes a shadow. A hidden sign becomes visible. A smile becomes a small performance. A young boy asks whether the dark paste tastes bitter. The traveler says yes, terribly bitter, which may or may not be true. The boy makes a face. The room laughs. The story, which might have become too solemn, loosens again. This too is important. Ritual and humor are not enemies. People laugh near sacred things because human beings cannot remain solemn forever. The body, even marked, remains comic. Teeth, meant to frighten enemies, may also get bits of bread stuck between them. A fierce grin may be followed by a sneeze. A man with a terrifying smile may still complain about a splinter. The temporary color begins to fade as the traveler drinks. The dark lines soften. The fire burns lower. The room accepts the change without comment. Marks can appear, shine, and retreat. Meaning does not always need to shout. Morning arrives slowly in the village. Gray light presses through the smoke hole and along the edges of the doorway. The air is cold enough that leaving the furs takes courage. A rooster, if there is one nearby, makes its opinion known. Someone stirs the embers. Someone else steps outside and returns with snow on their boots. The day begins in small, practical motions. You step outside for air. The fjord lies pale under mist. The boats are quiet. Frost has silvered the ropes and the edges of wooden posts. From another house comes the sound of a tool striking lightly, metal on something harder, then a pause, then another tap. It might be ordinary work in this village. Ordinary work and ritual are not always easy to separate. Near the stream, a young man kneels with a small blade, not cutting a tooth, but cleaning a groove already made. He is careful. He has a bowl of water, a strip of cloth, and a little pot of dark paste. When he sees you, he looks embarrassed for a moment, then proud. His marks are fresh enough that he moves gently, lips parted slightly. He does not say much. He does not need to. To be seen. That is one of the possible meanings in this story, and perhaps one of the most human. To be seen by the group, to be recognized as changed, to carry proof that others cannot easily ignore. A young person crossing into adulthood may want a sign. A warrior returning from danger may want a sign. A traveler coming home from far rivers may want a sign. A person grieving may want memory to live somewhere. The body will not misplace it. The young man dips a twig into the dark paste and touches it lightly to one groove. The line darkens. Suddenly the mark is no longer subtle. It is a stripe, a shadow, a statement. You might imagine enemies seeing such a smile in battle and feeling unease. The mouth opens in a shout, and the teeth flash with lines that make the face seem less familiar, less ordinary, perhaps less human in the moment of fear. Intimidation may have been one purpose, but not every mark made for fear remains trapped in fear. The same lines could be displayed at a feast, remembered by a child, touched by a lover, laughed through during a story. Body signs often carry many meanings depending on who is looking. A tattoo can be beauty to one person, defiance to another, memory to a third. A scar can be shame, pride, accident, survival. A tooth groove could be frightening to an enemy, honorable to a friend, mysterious to a stranger, painful to the person who received it, and sacred to the elder who made it. The stream moves slowly under ice. The young man rinses his hands. His breath rises. He looks toward the longhouse, where breakfast smoke is beginning to drift. The village is waking around him, and whatever the marks mean, they now belong to the day as much as the night. The story returns to the hearth. A pot is warming. Wood smoke curls upward. Someone breaks a piece of bread. The marks are not being made now. They are simply being lived with. Living with a mark may be the longest part of any bodily practice. The making may take minutes, or hours, or one difficult evening. The living takes years. A person wakes with the mark, eats with it, speaks with it, ages with it, watches it change, feels it with the tongue when anxious, forgets it entirely while carrying water, remembers it when a stranger stares. At first, a fresh groove might feel like an event. Later, it becomes geography. The mouth knows the little ridges and shallow lines the way a hand knows an old scar, or a foot knows the shape of a familiar shoe. The mark moves from ceremony into habit. Habit is where much of life actually lives. The young man by the stream will one day be older. His lines will soften. They may chip, darken, wear, or disappear partly beneath the ordinary damage of years. He has children. They may notice the marks before they understand them. If he travels, strangers may ask. If he is buried, the marks may remain when his voice is gone. This slow endurance is what gives tooth marking its archaeological power. A painted face can vanish by morning. A cloak can rot. A wooden amulet can decay. A spoken oath can be misremembered. But teeth, though not eternal, are stubborn. They carry marks across time with a patience that human memory rarely manages. And yet even durable evidence is incomplete. A groove remains. The fear does not. The pride does not. The jokes do not. The elder's hand does not. The smell of smoke, the winter cold, the child watching, the first meal after the marking. All of it vanishes unless we rebuild it carefully in imagination. So we return again and again to the room, because bones need rooms if we are to remember that they belong to lives. Inside, the women of the longhouse are at work, but work here does not mean silence. It's talk, observation, memory, and the passing of knowledge in gestures. A woman near the loom has strong hands and a patient face. She glances at the young man from the stream and shakes her head with a smile that may mean pride, amusement, worry, or all three. The question arises softly: who wore these marks? The archaeological record, as far as we know it, has often pointed toward adult men, especially young or middle-aged men. But the past is not perfectly preserved. Bones survive unevenly. Graves are found unevenly. Interpretation is shaped by what has been discovered and by what scholars think to ask. Absence is not always proof of absence. In the longhouse of imagination, a woman by the fire opens her mouth slightly and shows two faint marks, shallow and angled near her front teeth. Perhaps they are old. Perhaps they are not the same as the men's marks. Perhaps they are accidental, or perhaps they are not. She returns to spinning wool as though the matter is nothing, which of course makes it seem like something. Another woman says she once painted lines on her teeth for a festival. Temporary only. Ash and berry stain. Gone in days. A girl laughs and says she wants to do the same when she is older. Her mother says nothing, but her eyes soften. Here, we must be careful. It would be easy to invent too much, to place certainty where evidence is thin. So we speak gently. Maybe Viking women rarely filed their teeth. Maybe some did. Maybe temporary tooth painting existed in ways that left no trace. Maybe women understood the language of marked teeth, even when they did not wear the permanent marks themselves. Maybe they helped choose patterns, prepare pigments, soothe pain, remember meanings, or tell children whose smile belonged to whom. Power in Viking society was not only held by the person carrying a weapon, it could be held by the person who remembered the genealogy, managed the household, controlled stores, made cloth, healed wounds, arranged marriages, guarded keys, sang the old verses, or told the story correctly after the warriors had forgotten parts that made them look less heroic. A woman may not need a filed tooth to understand a marked mouth. Still, the image of the woman with faint marks by the fire remains. She says they were made before marriage, or before a winter journey, or after a brother returned, or simply because she wished to carry the same sign as those she loved. The reason changes each time the story is told. That is how oral worlds keep meaning alive. A little girl beside the hearth has painted white lines across her teeth with a paste that will vanish by morning. She grins at her sister, who laughs so hard she smears her own attempt. Their mother pretends not to approve and then corrects the line with her thumb. This is one of the softest images in the story. Imitation without permanence. Children playing at adult mystery. A practice that may be dangerous in one form becoming harmless in another. Identity rehearsed before it is chosen. The fire crackles. The loom sounds quietly. A girl grins, her painted teeth uneven and proud. The longhouse holds her laughter, and then lets it fade. The women's part of the story deserves more quiet space, because absence in the evidence can too easily become absence in the imagination. If most known filed teeth belong to men, that still does not mean women were outside the meaning of the practice. Women may have prepared pigment, soothed pain, judged patterns, remembered who had been marked, mocked those who boasted too much, praised those who endured, or warned children not to imitate what they were not ready to carry. A household is a memory machine in many societies. The people who manage food, cloth, healing, storage, children, and kinship also manage meaning. They know who received what object, who promised what, who came home changed, who left and did not return. They know the body histories of the household because bodies pass through their hands in birth, illness, washing, dressing, and burial. Imagine a mother touching the chin of a son whose grooves are new, not to admire them first, but to see whether the swelling has eased. Imagine a sister laughing at how serious he looks now. Imagine a wife darkening the lines before a feast because his hands are too large and clumsy for the careful work. Imagine an old woman remembering a man by the marks in his smile long after his voice has disappeared from the hall. These scenes may not leave direct archaeological traces, but they help us avoid a thin version of the past. Bodily practices are rarely worn by one person alone. They are received by a social world. They are interpreted at the table, in the bed place, at the hearth, in gossip, in affection, in mockery, in mourning. The little girl's temporary painted lines are gone by morning, but she remembers the laughter. She remembers her mother correcting the mark with a thumb. She remembers that adult signs can be powerful, but also playful. Years later, whether she wears such marks or not, she will understand their language because she learned it by the fire. The loom continues its soft work. Thread crosses thread. Stories cross bodies. Nothing in the longhouse belongs to only one person. Days pass. The cold remains, but you grow used to the rhythm of the village. Morning smoke, frozen water, bread warmed near embers, wool on shoulders, tools laid down and picked up again, conversations that begin in weather and end in ancestry. The marked teeth no longer startle you every time. They become part of the visual language of the place. Then one afternoon, You are invited to a smaller gathering. Not a feast, not a trial, not a funeral. Something quieter. A group sits around a low table inside the longhouse, while the wind presses at the walls. On the table are not only tools, but small carved objects. Pieces of bone and antler, each with lines. Symbols, patterns, and experiments. Some look like practice pieces. Some look like keepsakes. Some may be teaching tools. A few are shaped like teeth, or perhaps you only imagine that because of the subject. The elder explains, in few words, that not every mark is the same. Lines can be plain. Lines can be angled. Lines can cross. Some marks may count. Some may protect. Some may remember. Some may belong to a group. Some may belong only to the one who wears them. You ask what a crescent shape means when you see it scratched faintly into a piece of bone. The elder says, for dreams, and then says no more. For dreams, it is impossible to know whether such a phrase comes from historical truth, poetic invention, or the meeting place between them. But in a sleep story, we can hold it gently. A crescent hidden in a tooth, a mark worn in the mouth for what visits at night. The idea is strange, but also tender. The body as a little house for symbols. A man with cross-hatched marks says his pattern was chosen after a storm. Another says his first line came after his first voyage. Someone else says plain lines are better because symbols make the gods curious. This earns laughter. Even in serious traditions, people joke. Especially in serious traditions, humor keeps awe from becoming too heavy. The table becomes a map of possible meanings. A line for courage, a line for return, a line for the dead, a line for a ship, a line for belonging, a line because an elder said the face was ready. The marks might not have meant these exact things in any real Viking village, but the debate itself reflects something true. Once the body is marked, people will read it. They will ask who made it, why it was made, what it permits, what it remembers, what group it joins, what boundary it crosses. A body without marks is not blank. A body with marks is not fully explained. Both hold mystery. The firelight moves over the carved pieces. Shadows settle into the grooves. For a moment, the little bones resemble tiny landscapes, valleys and ridges, places where meaning could hide. Then someone covers them with a cloth. The gathering ends. No great revelation is given. Only more questions, softened by warmth and smoke. After the cloth is pulled over the small carved pieces, the room becomes ordinary again, but your mind does not leave the symbols so quickly. It lingers on the crescent, the crossed lines, the plain parallel grooves, the tiny experiments in bone and antler. There is something soothing about practice pieces. They remind us that even mystery may have begun with trial and error. Someone had to learn how deep was too deep. Someone had to learn how a line catches pigment. Someone had to learn which angle was visible when a person smiled. Someone had to ruin a piece of bone before touching a living tooth. Skill has a quiet history of failed attempts that no one sings about. The elder may once have been clumsy. This thought makes him more human. Before his hands became steady, perhaps they shook. Before others trusted him, he may have watched another. Before he marked a person, he marked scraps by the hearth. Testing pressure, listening to the scrape, learning how material responded. Craft is memory stored in fingers. The carved practice pieces sleep beneath the cloth. Around them, the longhouse resumes its small sounds. A bowl is rinsed. A child coughs. Someone pulls a cloak tighter. Outside, the wind lifts snow against the wall and lets it fall. There is no need to solve the symbols tonight. Their uncertainty is part of their beauty. A simple line can be enough. A line does not explain itself. A line waits for a story. That night, there is a burial. We will keep it gentle. The ground is hard. The air cold. And the people quiet in the way people become quiet when words have reached their limit. The body is wrapped. A cloak is folded. Objects are placed nearby, not as display, but as farewell. A small tool, a brooch, perhaps a knife, perhaps beads, perhaps something ordinary that meant more than it looked. The man being buried had marked teeth. The grooves are visible when the cloth shifts near his face. Not frightening now, not proud, only present. The lines he wore in life will go with him into earth, where centuries may pass before anyone sees them again. This is one reason teeth matter so much to archaeology. Cloth rots, wood decays, skin disappears, pigment fades. Spoken meaning vanishes almost immediately unless carried in writing or memory. Teeth endure. They are small, hard witnesses. They do not tell the whole truth, but they remain when softer things have gone. A child near the grave asks what the marks meant. An adult answers, "For strength," another says, "For remembering." A third says nothing. The silence may be the most accurate answer. The burial shows another possibility. Perhaps some marks were not only for the living. Perhaps they helped the dead be recognized. Perhaps they carried identity into the next world. Perhaps they warned spirits, honored ancestors, or simply remained because the person who had chosen them could not leave them behind. The snow begins again, light at first, then steadier. It touches hair, shoulders, the covered earth. The people turn back toward the longhouse. Grief, in winter, moves toward fire. Inside, no one speaks loudly. Bowls are filled. A cup passes from hand to hand. The elder sits near the hearth, his own faded marks visible when he whispers to the child from the grave. He says the old one marked many. He says some asked for lines, and some asked for symbols. He says the bravest marks are the ones no one fully explains. The child asks what yours would be. No one answers for you. This is another quiet hook in the story. What would a person choose to carry so permanently? A journey, a loss, a vow, a clan, a god, a victory. A winter survived. A name, a dream, or nothing at all, because the unmarked body is also allowed to be complete. The fire burns low. Snow covers the grave. The marks are hidden again. History sleeps under white ground, waiting for future hands to ask careful questions. The burial changes how the marks feel. In the living longhouse, they were active. They flashed in speech. They joined laughter. They could be darkened with pigment, admired, mocked, feared, or forgotten. In the grave, they become still. Their meaning no longer moves from person to person. It settles with the body and becomes patient evidence. Graves are not simple messages. They are acts of farewell shaped by belief, status, grief, practicality, weather, and the living community's idea of what the dead may need. An object placed beside a body may have been treasured, symbolic, useful, inherited, or simply chosen because someone could not bear to keep it. A marked tooth in a grave is even more complex. It was not placed there by mourners at the end. It had been carried into the grave by a whole life. That makes it intimate. The dead person does not wear the mark like a necklace selected for burial. The mark is part of the mouth. It crossed the threshold into death because it had already crossed the threshold into identity. Snow covers the mound slowly. The living return to fire. The grave remains outside, but not outside memory. Someone will pass it tomorrow, and the next day. And after the thaw, Children may be told not to step there. An adult may pause without speaking. The mark's smile has disappeared from daily life, but its story remains in the mouths of others. One day, perhaps centuries later, the grave may be opened by careful hands. The person lifting the bone will not hear the winter morning. They will not smell the smoke. They will not know which child asked what the marks meant. They will only see the grooves and begin again with questions. This is why our telling must be humble. The grave gives evidence. The longhouse gives imagination. Between them, history breathes. Now the story turns outward, beyond the village and its longhouse, toward the wider Viking world. It is easy to imagine Vikings only in the north, wrapped in cold and myth. But the Viking Age was full of movement. Ships crossed seas. Traders followed rivers. People moved between islands, towns, courts, camps, farms, and markets. Goods traveled, but so did habits, stories, styles, and ideas. A ship can carry more than cargo. It can carry a song, a knife shape, a bead pattern, a word, a fashion, a way of wearing hair, a story about teeth. In one corner of the longhouse, the traveler speaks again. He mentions distant places, not with the neatness of a map, but with the texture of memory. A river with mud banks, a city with gold light, a market smelling of spices and animals, a hall where foreign guards wore bright cloth, a harbor where men laughed at northern accents and still paid good silver for northern furs. He says he saw mouths marked differently elsewhere. Teeth darkened, filed, inlaid, shaped. He may be describing practices from places he truly visited. He may be repeating stories from other travelers. Either way, the longhouse listens because distant customs make local customs feel larger. If other peoples mark teeth, then the Viking marks are not isolated oddities. They belong to a broader human grammar around the world. People have altered teeth for beauty, adulthood, protection, mourning, rank, or fear. Some made teeth black to show refinement. Some filed them to shape the face. Some inserted precious materials. Some stained them for ritual. The mouth has always been more than a tool for eating. It is speech, breath, song, threat, desire, laughter, and oath. A marked mouth carries meaning close to language. This thought settles quietly in the room. When someone swears an oath, the teeth are near the words. When someone sings a saga, the teeth shape the sound. When someone smiles at a child, threatens an enemy, bargains at a market, or whispers to a lover, the marked teeth are there, participating. Perhaps that is why such marks feel powerful. They live where words begin. The traveler's story also reminds us that Viking identity was not sealed shut. It was porous, adaptive, practical, hungry for useful things. Vikings adopted coins, cloth, weapons, beliefs, decorative styles, and trade habits. A northern person could return from far travel wearing foreign silk, carrying Islamic silver, speaking borrowed words, and telling stories of cities that seemed impossible. Why not return also with a new idea about the body? Or perhaps no borrowing is needed. Perhaps many peoples independently discovered the same truth. A body can become a sign, and teeth, because they endure and reveal themselves in flashes, are a striking place to write that sign. The traveler laughs when someone asks whether foreigners feared his smile. He says some feared it, some admired it. One paid to see it twice. This may be a joke. It may also be true. A grin can be a strange currency in a world where recognition matters. Outside, the fog lifts from the fjord. A line of pale sunlight touches the snow. The boats wait for spring, and with spring, the roots will open again. The marked mouths in the longhouse will speak to strangers. They will trade, argue, threaten, charm, sing, and be remembered. For now, the journey remains in words. The fire remains in the center. The story travels while the body rests. As the days continue, you begin to notice how the marks change with light. In morning, they are faint. In firelight, they deepen. In shadow, they nearly disappear. When filled with dark paste, they become bold. When the mouth is closed, they are secret. When the mouth opens, they become declaration. This rhythm of hidden and revealed may be part of their power. A tattoo on the hand is visible all the time. A necklace can be displayed or tucked away. A tooth mark waits. It appears in speech and laughter, in moments of interaction. It is relational. It needs another person looking at the mouth to become fully visible. At a feast, this would matter. Imagine the longhouse brighter than usual, with lamps, extra wood on the fire, meat shared, horns passed, stories growing louder, faces turned toward one another. People laugh, teeth flash. The grooves catch light again and again. A marked smile becomes part of performance, part of reputation. A person known for courage laughs, and the marks reinforce the story. A traveler speaks, and the marks make his claims more memorable. A young man newly marked sits among elders, and the visible sign helps others place him differently than before. But even feasts end. The remains of food are cleared. Children sleep where they fall. The dog's nose at scraps. The marked mouths close. The symbols vanish into ordinary tired faces. This is important for sleep. The story does not need to stay dramatic. Even the strangest customs return to daily life. People with carved teeth still wake with stiff backs. They still lose tools. They still argue about livestock. They still burn porridge. They still watch weather. They still long for spring. History becomes softer when we remember that people were always more than their most unusual practices. A man with filed teeth might also be afraid of storms. A woman who understands the marks might also worry about a sick child. An elder who makes symbols might also forget where he placed a knife. A young warrior with a fearsome grin might still wince while eating hot stew. The human returns through these small details. The longhouse breathes. A bowl is washed. A cloak is folded. Someone laughs in sleep. A body marked by ritual rests like any other body. The archaeological record is patient, but incomplete. Centuries from now, people will lift bones from earth and look carefully at teeth. They will notice grooves. They will measure them. They will compare them. They will ask whether the lines are deliberate, whether they were made before death, whether they cluster in certain places, whether they belong to men or women, whether they indicate violence, beauty, profession, rank, ritual, or something else. They will use microscopes, photographs, reports, comparisons. They will argue politely and sometimes not politely. They will publish cautious phrases, possibly perhaps, suggests, may indicate, cannot rule out. These are humble words, and good history often needs them. The original meanings may remain partly hidden because the Viking world did not leave a simple instruction manual for tooth marks. Sagas were written later. Archaeology preserves material traces, not whispered reasons. A tooth can show that a groove existed, but not whether the person smiled proudly the day it was made or regretted it later, or touched it every morning with a tongue like a private prayer. That is why sleep history can be especially gentle. It allows us to wonder without pretending. Wonder is proof. It allows an image to glow without hardening into certainty. A filed tooth is evidence. A story built around it is interpretation. Between them lies the soft dark where imagination moves carefully. So we return again to the imagined village, not to claim that every detail is fact, but to let the evidence breathe in human air. We let the longhouse give the bones a room. We let the tools belong to hands. We let the marks belong to mouths that speak, eat, smile, complain, sing, and sleep. The elder's teeth, the young man's fresh grooves, the traveler's darkened lines, the woman's faint marks, the child's painted smile, the buried man's silent mouth. All of them are possibilities arranged around a fire. Some will be closer to history than others. All of them help us feel the central mystery. Why would a person mark the mouth? Perhaps to frighten. Perhaps to belong. Perhaps to remember. Perhaps to become beautiful. According to a beauty we no longer fully understand. Perhaps to show pain endured. Perhaps to carry a symbol where words are born. The answer may have changed from person to person, village to village, decade to decade. The fire accepts this uncertainty. The snow accepts it too. The night does not require a single conclusion. Near the end of your stay in the village, the weather softens slightly. Not spring yet, but a hint of thaw. The snow near the doorway becomes wet at the edges. Water drips from the roof in slow intervals. The path to the shore grows slick. The boats still wait, but now they seem less asleep. Inside the longhouse, people prepare in small ways. Ropes are checked, tools are sharpened, cloth is examined, goods are counted. The marked mouths will soon travel again, or greet those who do. Winter's inward stories will become spring's outward motion. The young man with fresh grooves now eats more easily. His mouth has adjusted. The lines have darkened slightly, not from pigment, but from life settling into them. He no longer touches them every few moments. They are becoming part of him. The woman at the loom has finished a length of cloth. Its pattern is subtle, gray and blue, with a narrow repeated line near the edge. She says nothing about the resemblance to tooth grooves, but you notice. Perhaps all patterns speak to one another in a place where hands make nearly everything. The elder sits by the hearth, half asleep. The pouch of tools rests beside him. The child inches closer, not to be marked, only to see. The elder opens one eye and tells the child to wait until a story is worth carrying. The child asks how you know. The elder says you do not know at first. That is why elders exist. It is a small joke. It is also not a joke. This is one of the final reveals. Marks need witnesses. A person can carve a line into the body, but the community helps decide whether it becomes honor, warning, beauty, memory, or mistake. The body carries the mark. The group carries the meaning. Outside, a raven moves along the roofline. The sea wind enters briefly when the door opens and leaves a smell of salt. Someone brings in wood. Someone complains that the thaw makes the ground worse than frost. A bowl of warm broth is placed near you. The broth is thin, but the warmth is real. You hold the bowl in both hands and look around the longhouse one last time. The fire, the rafters, the hanging fish, the sleeping dog, the women working, the men talking, the children watching everything. The elder's faded smile, the traveler's darkened grooves, the chieftain's proud lines, the girl's temporary paint, already gone from her teeth, but still alive in her memory. You realize the marks are no longer merely strange. They have become one thread in a larger fabric of life. They are not the whole Viking world. They are one doorway into it. Through that doorway we see pain, yes, but also craft. Not violence alone, but identity. Not spectacle alone, but belonging. Not certainty, but the deep human impulse to make meaning visible. Now the story begins to drift toward ending. The light outside fades. The thaw pauses. The longhouse returns to night. One by one, people settle into sleep. The tools are put away. The bowls are stacked. The fire is fed just enough to last. A child curls beneath a fir. Someone snores softly. Someone whispers a final sentence and receives no answer because the listener has already drifted away. You lie near the hearth, wrapped in wool, watching the last colors move inside the embers. Above you, smoke-dark rafters hold shadows. Beyond the walls, the fjord is quiet. The boats rock very gently, as if dreaming of rivers. Your tongue touches your own teeth, smooth and unmarked. For a moment, you understand how intimate a tooth mark would be. Not an object worn outside the body, but a change carried within the face. A line felt every day, a tiny ridge or groove known to the tongue, even when no one else sees it. A secret made visible only when the mouth opens. You do not need such a mark. You only need to understand that people have always found ways to carry stories on themselves. Some in cloth, some in scars, some in jewelry, some in hair, some in names, some in teeth, some only in memory. The fire lowers. The longhouse breathes. The snow outside reflects the last blue of evening. The elder's tools sleep in their pouch. The child's painted grin has faded. The traveler's stories have gone quiet. The buried man lies beneath snow with his marks hidden from everyone but the earth. The young man dreams with his new lines. The woman at the loom dreams of patterns. The boats dream of thawing water. And you can let the whole village soften now. No scraping, no fear, no sharpness. Only firelight, breath, wool, snow, and the old mystery of human beings trying to be remembered. The story does not close like a door. It remains slightly open, the way history always does. Somewhere in the dark earth of Scandinavia, teeth still hold fine lines cut 1,000 years ago. Somewhere in a museum drawer, a jaw rests under careful light. Somewhere a scholar leans closer, trying to read what cannot fully be read. Somewhere a listener, almost asleep, imagines a longhouse and a smile flashing briefly in firelight. That is enough. We do not need to solve every mark tonight. We can leave some meanings under the tongue. We can let the grooves remain grooves. The questions remain questions. The fire remain fire. The night grows deeper. The wind moves over the roof. A coal shifts and settles. Faye. Fjord is still beneath the winter sky, and in the warmth of the longhouse, among sleeping, people in hidden tools, the old marked smiles fade gently into dreams.